Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us here for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson. If you're a farmer planning on heading in to talk to your banker this spring for renewal season, be sure to ask them about the ACRE program. This was a new program that was included in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that can reduce interest rates on farmland real estate loans. I had the chance to talk with Ed Elfman of the American Bankers Association about how it works and whether or not farmers should look into it.
The ACRE Act, what it essentially does is it's a 25% tax benefit on the income that is earned from interest. What does that mean for you as a farmer? It means you'll have lower interest rates, because banks will pass through the savings from that tax benefit into lower interest rates. And we're already seeing banks in Kansas and Nebraska and some other places putting it in place, and it is resulting in what we said it would do, lower interest rates for farmers. It's a way to be more competitive, have a better lending environment, and drive down one of the biggest things right now, which is input costs.
And is this program available to all lenders? Do they have to be in rural America? Is it a bank size cap? How does that work?
It's any farm real estate. Which is interesting, right? So you get farmland, timberland, ranch land. We have been going back and forth with Treasury, hoping to get some guidance out. Bankers like rules and regs and guidance. So we need to get a little more guidance on what exactly qualifies and doesn't qualify that's on a farm, right? We believe poultry facilities should qualify, dairy farms should qualify. FDIC says anything within the boundaries of a farm counts as a farm. So we told Treasury that's a good definition to use, make it as broad as possible. But we need that official guidance to come out to really start rocking and rolling with ACRE. But we're seeing some folks from the very basic definition, new loan with farmland, they're putting ACRE in place. Any loan made after July 4th of 2025 qualifies for ACRE.
So if I'm a farmer and I'm looking at maybe making a real estate purchase, I should bring this up with my lender if they don't bring it up with me.
You should have a real discussion with them. Hey, does this apply? Does this make sense? Does our operation, do we need to maybe modify the loan in some way? Because if you have any refinancing, then the qualification falls off. So that's maybe we're gonna have a discussion with your lender of, is it better for us to do a small refinancing? Does that make more sense? Or should we have two separate loans, for example, to get this qualification? But at the end of the day, it's out there and bankers want to use it. So I don't think it'll be a very tough conversation to get your banker on board.
It's great to have more tools in the toolbox for American agriculture right now. Of course, also in Washington, D.C., we're always talking and waiting on a new farm bill, a skinny farm bill. At this point in the game, Ed, do we still need a farm bill? Why does it matter to the world of ag lending?
Yeah, farm bill matters, especially on the lending side of the world, because we have priorities, like every organization, we have priorities that we've been trying to get done for years. We want to increase the guaranteed loan limits, both on the farm ownership side and the operating side at Farm Service Agency. They're just too small for modern agriculture. Current limit, it's with inflation, is about 2.25 million. We'd like to get ownership to 3.5 million and operating to 3 million. Why? Everything costs more. I'm not saying anything your farmers don't know at this point. Everything costs more. But we need to have those tools in the toolbox that ultimately can be used to help all operations, from our beginning farmers to our well-established farmers. I do believe we're going to see some farmers going back to FSA that haven't been there in a while, just because of the state of the ag economy and trying to find ways to provide risk management or have a tool you can use as a lender. So having a long-term farm bill is a way to get those things in place. There's a lot of support. There's a bill out there, there's bills already out there, and Ranking Member Klobuchar on the Senate Ag Committee is a sponsor of one of those bills. So they want to see this happen, but we need to have a long-term farm bill in order to get it done.
Thank you, Ed, for those additional details. The world of animal health over the past year has also seen a number of headlines. One of the biggest ones has been the ongoing crisis created by H5N1 avian influenza. I had the chance to talk with Lisa Becton of the Swine Health Information Center about whether or not this disease was transmissible in pork.
Influenzas can affect pigs, and we currently have several strains of endemic influenza in pigs, but what we don't completely know is what H5N1 will do in swine. So we have started a research program that was initiated last year. We developed producer priorities and actually worked with the Foundation for Food and Agriculture and the National Pork Board and did a three-way collaboration to the tune of $4 million. And that led to a call for proposals, and then this summer we funded 10 projects specifically on swine, trying to address different things like transmissibility. What are the clinical signs in pigs? What does it look like? You know, we know in the dairy industry it affects the mammary gland. Does it do the same thing in swine? We don't know. Also looking at multi-species, because a lot of our operations don't just have pigs. We may have poultry nearby or cattle on the premise. So we want to understand what are those risks. And then biosecurity-wise, how can our workers, all of the people that service the farms, how can we protect those farms against the incursion of the virus?
When do we expect some of this research to be public? When will we know these answers?
This research started the summer of this year, and they vary anywhere between 9 to 18 months. And so if we have things that come up that are, you know, something that we can report on, we'll do that as soon as we can. Otherwise, we usually let the research run its course, and then close to the time of completion, then we'll start to do articles, we'll inform the public what's happening, but there'll also be other opportunities in different veterinary conventions and other producer meetings to just inform the public what's going on.
So hopefully we will be more prepared for H5N1 should it ever cross into hogs. But in the meantime, the pork industry still has a number of endemic diseases and pests. What are you watching right now as we head into 2026 that keeps you up at night? What are the swine threats out there here for U.S. producers?
Sure. We do several different forms of monitoring. We monitor both domestic diseases through our swine disease reporting system, as well as the Morrison Swine Health Monitoring Project. And then we also look at global diseases through our global disease reporting system. I think here in the U.S., some of the big ones obviously are the porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome virus, or PRRS. That one has seen an increased incidence of detection through our veterinary diagnostic laboratories. Normally we would see a little bit of reduction in the summertime, but not always. It did not always happen that way this year. And now we're going into wintertime when we see that trajectory also increase for the number of outbreaks. Same thing for porcine epidemic diarrhea virus. So those are really things that we're looking at from the endemic side. African swine fever always continues to be a concern internationally, as well as foot and mouth disease, because we still do not have either of those viruses in the United States, and we do not want to have them. But there's been activity in both viruses that just make us want to continue to monitor, ensure that we're doing everything in the event should it ever get to the U.S., and hopefully prevent it ever getting here.
Absolutely. And of course, the Swine Health Information Center has spent a lot of time researching what to do should these things show up. And of course, it always tends to come down to biosecurity. Where can folks go for the best practices for biosecurity on their operation for a pork setup?
We've got a lot of information available at swinehealth.org. We also have a lot of fact sheets that outline the differences between some of these viruses, how they transmit, which also support biosecurity.
Thank you, Lisa. And folks, biosecurity is going to continue to be of utmost importance for those in the livestock industry. If you have questions about these diseases and pests, or you'd like to learn more about better biosecurity for your operation, that website, once again, is swinehealth.org. Well, we were at the Organic Grower Summit in Monterey, California last month. I noticed a familiar face in the crowd, that of Mike Newland from the Propane Education and Research Council. We had the chance to catch up with him, and I asked Mike, what are you doing at this event?
We're here with a group of folks from the area who have developed a soil steaming unit. The research has been going on for a long time through UC Davis Extension. Dr. Steve Fenimore. Dr. Fenimore just recently retired from the Extension Service, but PERC has been working with him for a number of years. The work continues. They've got commercial units that are running in fields today. Later this week, we'll be out at a manufacturing facility looking at a strawberry exclusive unit. So it's all about steam here at the Organic Grower Summit.
Let's take a step back. Mike, what is Dr. Fenimore trying to accomplish by steaming these strawberry beds with this new machine?
Yeah, so that whole process really starts with fumigation of the soil prior to planting. And this technology using steam instead of fumigants is really the essence of the project. So he's injecting steam prior to planting, anywhere from 4 inches in like a lettuce application. Strawberries are probably pushing maybe a foot down prior to that bed being shaped. We're pasteurizing the soil, trying to kill the bad things, make those weed seeds inactive as well, but leave the good biologicals in the process.
How many years have they been using a prototype machine, getting this process to fruition?
Yeah, we were talking about that at the booth during the trade show. I think we've been involved, PERC's been involved for I think 13 years now, and Dr. Fenimore's done some work previous to that. So it's been a big part of his professional career, and quite honestly, it's been a big part of PERC's existence here in the agricultural space behind the scenes over the last decade. And we're excited where he's at today. We've talked to some very big growers here at the trade show, and they're doing demos with those very folks currently and in the future.
Mike, PERC is a part of this. Can you talk a little bit about the mechanism by which PERC is working to help farmers find new solutions on the ground? Is that something you are always doing at PERC?
It is. Most people, when they hear agriculture and propane, they think grain drying and heating livestock buildings, and that's a big part of what we do. But we also do give grant money away sometimes. So there's a grant process. People can apply for grants through PERC. There's a process for all those grants to be reviewed. Very long process, as you might guess, with public money. So, but yeah, if all those steps are crossed, the industry thinks it's a good idea, we will invest in giving grant money to people like Dr. Fenimore. And it's been a great process, it's been a great partnership. And man, to see the units in the fields running, and it's just something that we're very proud of to be a part of.
Now, Mike, I know we do have specialty crop producers in our audience. If they want to see this tool in action, or at least on the internet, where would you send them to get more details?
I'd send them to our website, first of all. So go to propane.com. There's a soil steaming landing page, so you can type in the little search window at the top, soil steaming. It'll pop up. We've got a video that we produced about a year ago. We're running it on the trade show floor today here. Dr. Fenimore's in it, explaining it. One of the engineers he worked with is on there, and you actually get to see my face again if you want to go there as well. I'm part of the video as well, because I think really when all the dust settles, it's really a consumer product. We're going to produce healthier fruit and food because of it, and I think ultimately that's the goal.
Agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier returns now with his extended farm weather forecast for the country.
Well, since it is the new year, we asked Greg Solier to give us a long-range outlook as to what we might expect over the coming months. And Greg, how are things looking for January?
Well, and a happy new year to you and one and all out there, and wish we could come up with a much happier and newer look to the steering currents and the overall weather pattern. Kind of get used to this look here with Arctic air frequently making its presence felt this wintertime season. This is the January snapshot with a moderate La Nina, and when these things strengthen into the kind of apex of the winter season, things get pretty dicey. A wide variance of temperatures from northern California, heart of the winter wheat belt, across areas north of the Ohio. There is some degree of warmth down through cattle country in the southeastern sections of the country, but again, at times watch for these cold air intrusions making their way into Dixie. But a pretty busy storm track, unfortunately, still focused in the Pacific Northwest, probably worsening drought through California and the southwestern reaches of the country, more normalized precip over the deep south, and still some areas of concern. This is a typical setup of La Nina, drier than usual weather down through Dixie, including Florida, but a very busy active storm track for the northeast of New England into the heart of the Corn Belt, back westward across the high plains and northern and central Rockies.
Is that La Nina still in play as we get into February?
Get into February and probably March. Boy, that Arctic air is firmly ensconced. A lot of snow on the ground, not only the middle part of the country, across the western states as well. Canadian prairie extending all the way back into parts of eastern Siberia and the northwest territories of Canada. So it's just basically that, a character-building wintertime season. Haven't really seen many of these here over the past probably 10 or 20 years. At least Harbinger back from what we looked at from a climatological standpoint to the mid to late 70s. Warmth here, again, active storm track over the southern plains up through the Ohio Valley, and this is what you come up with. It's welcome moisture, but a tough go of it with livestock operations, southern plains, storminess across the Corn Belt. Speaking of which, down across the Gulf Coast, significant snowfall normal for the northern plains, and the storm pattern continues on into the Pacific Northwest.
So no real change as we get into March?
Not much of a change. You're looking for springtime or rolling into meteorological spring, but anything but. The cold air begins probably mid to late months to relax somewhat, but this is, again, a very busy storm track. Temperatures to vary in the southwestern states out there towards the spring training sites. Maybe some warmth into the soils over the deep south and southeastern parts of the country, but it's these cold air intrusions as systems come ashore out of the at least Pacific. They will be quite energetic and result in this particular setup. Unfortunately, still high and dry and expanding dryness and drought into Southern California, the Southwest, Gulf Coast areas as well. We'll get the severe weather season to go on mid-Atlantic region down to the southern plains and not too far to the north of that. Still a busy late winter storm track from areas of the St. Lawrence River Valley across the heart of the Corn Belt, northern and central plains. Probably going to set some records for snowfall in the Pacific Northwest.
And I imagine those piles of snow in the northern plains are going to keep those cold temps around even as we get into April.
Yeah, these cold air masses like to migrate over cold-soaked and or snow-covered ground. So, yeah, wouldn't be surprised there are some late-season snows for parts of the upper Midwest, but significant late-season frost and freezes. We're certainly still well ahead of the normal ending to frost and freeze dates, but more so colder than usual here. The warmth across the Gulf Coast in through Florida, and still a pretty busy storm track anticipated as well. Here it is, Pacific Northwest into the northern and central plains, severe weather potential down through areas of the southern plains into the mid-Atlantic region. More snowfall in the spring outlook for the upper Midwest, late season style.
Northern Corn Belt growers going to be able to get into the field in May?
Probably not. Snow on the ground. Moisture continues on, and probably keep an eye on those streams and rivers as well this year. Haven't had much going on in the flood department, but at least we will elevate area streams and rivers, especially as they feed into and including the Mississippi, the Missouri, and the Ohio Valley. There's some warmth there, back across the western reaches of the country, down through Dixie as well. Still some lingering cold air with a lot of snow still on the ground. We anticipate central and eastern and southeastern Canada, and so a propensity for at least a little drier window of opportunity. Parts of the central and southern plains, Corn Belt locales west of the Mississippi, normal moisture down through Florida, maybe expanding dryness and drought through the southern plains, but it's still locked into this very busy storm track, Pacific Northwest into the northern plains, southern Canadian prairie, and probably some late season snows up towards the Sioux and the St. Lawrence River Valley. So it is going to be a tough and challenging wintertime season. Not much opportunity from the way we see it here with early season access and field work across much of the country compared to recent years over the plains and Corn Belt locales. We'll certainly keep you posted right here.
Closed captioning this week is brought to you by Farm Progress. Their team of experts reports on innovative solutions and essential information for your farm business. Visit farmprogress.com to stay updated. In early December, in Monterey, California, organic farmers from around the country gather for the Organic Grower Summit. They're drawn, of course, by the weather in Monterey, California, and the educational opportunities. And I had the chance to talk with agronomist Eric Morgan about why he came to the show.
Well, it's really my favorite event of the year. I look forward to it every year. I've been in Florida for several weeks and made sure I was back in Monterey County specifically for this event. So passionate about it that they actually invited me to be one of the advisors to kind of help pick the content. And I know I've done panels here for the last 3 or 4 years as well, covering some of the topics. So definitely passionate about Organic Produce Summit and Organic Grower Summit. And really what's nice about Organic Grower Summit is we're talking about interesting organic topics, great minds that are here, but we also bring an ag tech element as well, because organic growers do need to implement, new technology into the production system. So it's valuable to have all of that in one spot.
That makes sense. You mentioned your role in helping create the content for the event. As a content creator, when you talk to organic growers out there, how do you define what it is they're hungry for? What does this industry need from an educational perspective?
Well, I think the topic that I brought to the table this year that was pretty good and relevant is the intersection of food safety and biodiversity on the farm. And it's an important topic because growers are being pulled in a couple different directions. There's a lot of narratives about food safety, there's a lot of facts about food safety, there's a lot of narratives about biodiversity and a lot of facts about biodiversity, and they're just not coming together. So we had a pretty robust discussion this morning where we basically brought practitioners like myself, researchers from the University of California, and another practitioner has a pretty good scientific background, and basically start to leverage the information that we have and actually discuss the pull that's in the market. Because at this point, growers are being moved by a lot of forces outside their control, be it retailers, and at some point, actually, we're going to see it from lenders as well in terms of climate policy and stuff like that, lending decisions. So it's really important to educate growers that we can't stay where we're at. It's important to facilitate change and to become educated. And I think that this panel that we had this morning and a few other panels that we did really covered important topics and highlight successes and failures and challenges, and hopefully we can educate some folks along the way.
As you look out, Eric, do you think this event is applicable not just to organic growers in California, but it has resonance for an organic grower no matter where they are in the country?
Absolutely. Part of my little road trip that started in September, I spent some time in Mexico, and I got to visit an American man, expat, growing organically the right way in Mexico, an amazing operation. And I said, you have to get up here. He's in a pocket in an island in Baja, and he needs to be with his organic grower colleagues. And so this should be international. It should be international, and this is a great spot to do it, great time of year, and we need to bring these producers together because they need to pull together.
And that's what OGS does. It brings these growers together. One of the growers who was on hand for this year's event was Kristen Smith-Ashaya. I asked Kristen what it was that brought her to the event here in 2025.
I work in my family company, but I went to school, worked there for a little bit, then went away, and then I came back. And when I came back, I was really looking at learning a lot more about the industry. And so I was looking for different conferences that would give me that education. And this was one of the ones I went to, and I thought they had some of the best education sessions of any of the conferences I was going to.
So you've got some real value to take back home to the operation.
Yes, and that's been keeping me coming back, yes.
And then when we talk about operations, the family business, the family farm, they all take different shapes. Can you tell us a little bit about yours?
Yeah, we're based out of Yuma, Arizona, but we actually started in Colorado, which we still have a farm over there, and we have a potato packing facility. But we started there with a cooler. My grandfather was a district attorney there, but he just grew up on a farm and always wanted to get back to that. So he finally did. And so we started there, and then we went to, the cooling business brought us to Yuma, Arizona, where eventually we realized we actually wanted to be in farming. So then we started farming there, and then we went across the border to Mexico. So we were also farming there, and then with all of our customers and our shippers here in Salinas, we decided to expand up here in Salinas, actually with just organic farming in the beginning. Now we do organic and conventional, but in 2005 we came here and did all organic.
And I know through your experience you've also had a lot of work with Western Growers, one of the presenting sponsors for this event, longtime backer. What was it that made working with Western Growers make sense for you?
It's when you're in farming, it's not just about what's going on your farm, it's kind of what's going on in the entire industry. So as much as we're competitors with our fellow farmers, we're also friends. So it's my father served as on the board of Western Growers for a long time. And now I get that privilege of serving as a board of director on Western Growers. And it's our way of giving back to the industry and making sure we're advocating on behalf of the industry.
As you look forward, do you plan on coming back to the Organic Grower Summit for the next couple of years?
Yeah, I hope so. I like to. It's a nice time to get up to Monterey. It's a really good summit. Like I said, the education sessions are always really good. I really like the people I meet here. Everything about it makes it a great experience.
Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Pioneer. 100 starts with 1.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. 2025 was a big year for many farmers throughout agriculture, but it was also a big year for a lot of the companies that support agriculture. Joining me now is John Nepple. He serves as the Chief Financial Officer for Bunge. Mr. Nepple, thanks for joining us this week.
You bet. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Before we get into talking about Bunge, let's learn a little bit about you. What's your background? What led you to this position here?
I was fortunate enough to join Bunge about 6.5 years ago in a management shakeup, and And we started out in New York, working in the New York office. And then we, after about 6 months, decided to move the headquarters to St. Louis. So we could be closer to agriculture, closer to the farmers, and closer to our U.S. operations.
That makes sense. Now, of course, let's talk a little bit about Bunge, massive global company. Let's talk about how it's building demand for U.S. farmers and for commodities around the world.
Yeah, so one of the things that's really important for us is that farmer relationship. And we think about customers on both ends of the supply chain, farmers on one end and of course our downstream customers on the other. And we recognize in the U.S. it's really critical to create a market, a global market for the U.S. farmer. And by virtue of our global footprint and our export capability, we're constantly looking for those new opportunities. And with some of the issues we've had with China trade, our job is to find other markets for U.S. crops, and we've worked hard to do that.
John, let's talk about that big change this past year. Bunge, Viterra came together. What does that mean going forward for American growers?
Yeah, what it means for us is one of the things that we lacked as Bunge, while we had a large crushing, U.S. soybean processing footprint in the U.S., we really lacked a lot of that direct farmer touch. And one of the things that we've been working on with our downstream customers are things like regenerative ag practices. And it was really difficult, has been difficult for us to make a lot of headway there. And just given our limited touch directly with farmers. And so with the Viterra combination, we're going to have a lot more touch directly with the farmer. Of course, Viterra had a pretty broad U.S. origination footprint, one that I'm quite familiar with. I actually worked at the predecessor company years ago, but really important for us to get that broad reach. And at the same time, it gives the farmers another outlet, given our broad global footprint, to be able to get those crops, originated and out. But so aside from just the regenerative ag practices and our ability to work with the farmer directly, we are also starting to introduce novel crops into the U.S. So one of the things we're focused on right now is winter canola. And we've expanded that program substantially this year across the kind of mid-southern U.S. And it's a cover crop in the winter that ultimately our goal is to process that seed and convert it into biofuels here in the U.S. Right now, a lot of we're exporting to Europe, but again, a new market and a new revenue opportunity for the farmer.
Let's talk about investments. John, does Bunge have any of those coming that could impact U.S. producers?
We do. Right now in the U.S., we've got about $1.5 billion of infrastructure projects underway. As an example, in Morristown, Indiana, as we speak, we've just recently started up a new soy protein concentrate plant, and it's going to create additional demand in the local market in Indiana for soybeans, and sits alongside of our existing soybean processing plant. In the Louisiana, southern Louisiana, we've invested nearly $1 billion in infrastructure between expanding our soy processing and novel seed processing capabilities and our export capabilities in Louisiana to export, meal and other crops out of the U.S. as we process, more and more for the biofuel industry. And then we've also expanded our capability in the PNW to export soybean meal as processing grows and the demand for capacity to export soybean meal grows. We will have that capability out of the PNW.
It takes a lot of hands to push these new markets into being. Glad Bunge is working right beside the American farmer to make them come into reality. John Nepple, thank you so much for joining us and filling us in on what's ahead for Bunge.
Thank you.
This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by Grinnell Mutual. Farming is complicated. Our comprehensive policies make it simple. Protect your tomorrow from the unexpected with Grinnell Mutual. Joining us this week is Andy Castillo. He's the technology and equipment editor here at Farm Progress, and recently he had the chance to travel to Germany. Andy, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, I am tired. It has been a year end of a lot of travel, and I'm happy to be home.
So let's talk about Agritechnica. That took you over to Germany. What is that show like for those of us who've never been?
Overwhelming is the word that springs to mind very quickly. It happens every 2 years in Hanover, Germany, and it's 27 massive buildings filled with all kinds of farm equipment. I mean, everything you could possibly imagine under the sun is located in these buildings. It was quite an experience for me as a first-time visitor there.
I believe that. And now, of course, when you're exploring those 27 buildings and walking all over the place, did you see any trends? What were some of the coming technological trends you saw in Europe?
Well, it's interesting because Europe is very different from North American row crops, as we can all understand. First of all, their farmland is fractured, so the machines, the tractors specifically that were released this year, are really focused on compact size, higher horsepower for that size, and increased mobility. So a lot of these machines are driving along roadways. They need to be able to, squeeze through tight areas. And also European regulations are different than the United States. So a lot of the technology was focused on increasing efficiency while also reducing carbon output. So a few of the big trends that I noticed were electric machines. There's a lot of foreign-made tractors there that are shifting toward electric, including John Deere. They were showcasing a new electric tractor for specialty crops that's actually going to be released in North America next year. So it, is relevant to North American farmers.
And how big is that one? Again, we're talking that smaller, more of a utility tractor size?
It comes around 140 horsepower. And a few of the experts that I talked to preliminarily think that maybe for now, that might be about the top end horsepower that electric machines come in. But who knows? In the future, as this battery technology in particular starts to advance, we might see some more increase in horsepower.
Okay, so that's on the tractor side. We've got this electricity coming. What else did you see? What was maybe the coolest thing you saw over there in Hanover, Germany?
Well, some people, some brands might disagree with that 140 horsepower cap, including a Chinese-made manufacturer called Zoomlion that unveiled an electric combine that they say has a 300 horsepower equivalent, running off of 12 individual electric batteries that are charged by a diesel generator. So a little bit of, fossil fuels that are in use, but very minimal. This generator is just charging the batteries as they run.
I'll be darned. So I'm not plugging it into a wall. I'm filling the tank with diesel. I'm firing up the diesel motor, but I'm running on electric, like a locomotive.
Absolutely. And apparently this thing can run for 60 hours. I did ask to see what it looked like under the hood, and they wouldn't let me. So this is what they're saying it can do, but who really knows? I mean, either way, I was pretty blown away by it.
And no plans for that to be released here in the U.S. anytime soon. That was more of a prototype.
I don't think so. And you know what? I don't know if the North American market is quite ready for electric combines. I think we might be quite some far away from that.
I think you might be right. 300 horsepower, we might need a little more juice across a lot of these farm fields. Of course, Andy Castillo, you cover these issues in detail for Farm Progress. Folks can always get on farmprogress.com, see your write-ups, and thank you so much for joining us this week.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Mike, and have a great end of year and holiday and New Year.
Now on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, where we spotlight another great American farm tractor. Well, Happy New Year! As we start off 2026, we look back here on the Tractor Shed to 1976. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by the folks at Ag Spray Equipment, a leader in liquid application equipment and parts, and the home of the GT Series trailer. From turnkey solutions to field-proven performance, they help maximize your spraying operation. Learn more at agspray.com. Well, some of you will recall indeed what was happening 50 years ago, the big bicentennial year. It was a big celebration. Everything was being painted red, white, and blue with the stars and stripes, including tractors at J.I. Case. Here are two great examples, courtesy of Aaron Heineman, our friend at Oakland City, Indiana. Well, first of all, let's look at the big tractor. That's a 180 horsepower tractor, this 1976 Case 1570. And he bought it from the original owners, the Rumble family at Oakland City, Indiana. He's owned it, I think Aaron told me he's owned it about 9 years. Now look at this little one, the 446. Aaron says it's believed there were only 8 of these made. J.I. Case used this little tractor, a 16 horsepower hydraulic drive tractor, to pull floats in the 4th of July parade in Racine, Wisconsin. A couple of great representatives, stars and stripes, red, white, and blue. It'll be interesting to see what is done this year with a big celebration. Now here's Mark Stock with his weekly Big Iron Report.
Well, Max Big Iron and Sullivan Auctioneers would like to thank all of our business partners, our sellers, our buyers for 2025, and we get kicked off here ready for 2026 with another full slate of land auctions, machinery auctions, livestock sales, and our very special collector and classic car sale that's coming up here in March. On Tuesday, January the 6th, is the very large late model John Deere farm machinery sale for the Young Farms, Inc. out of Craig, Missouri. The Robert and Gwendolyn Kennedy Farm will sell on Tuesday, January the 6th on SullivanAuctioneers.com. This is outstanding Adams County, Illinois farmland selling at auction. On Wednesday, January the 7th, the Danny L. Dannenhauer Family Trust Land in Lewis County, Missouri will sell. 387 acres selling in 7 different tracts. The farmland is located north of Lewistown, Missouri, and 5 miles southeast of Deer Ridge, Missouri. On Thursday, January the 8th, 75 acres will sell in Lee County, Iowa for Stephen J. Menke Trust. And Max, the first collector car auction for 2026, will be held on Monday and Tuesday, March 2nd and March 3rd. If you have a collector car you would like to sell, please get a hold of Craig Hoyer as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Gehringhoff. Check out the new XFR 50 Draper with 3 times more flexibility than the closest competitor at Gehringhoff.com. Gehringhoff, proudly built in the American heartland. Well, this week we're getting to know Coben Tate. Coben is serving as the Vice President for the Illinois State FFA this year. Coben, thanks for talking with us.
Yes, thank you for taking the time to have me here.
So let's talk about what was it that made you first want to put on that blue corduroy jacket?
Yeah, of course. The biggest inspiration for me to join an FFA and get my own FFA jacket was seeing my older siblings. I have an older brother, 9 years older than me, and an older sister who's 3 years older than me, and they both went through high school, and they were very involved with ag class and FFA as a whole. And I can just distinctly remember being at home after school in elementary school and watching my older brother and my older sister come back from either a chapter meeting or a contest wearing their FFA jackets. And then came the time for me to go into high school, and I realized that me being in an ag class was giving me that opportunity as well. And I decided I kind of wanted to follow in the footsteps of my older siblings, because not only are they my siblings, but they're one of my biggest role models as well. And I hope to be just like them in the future.
That is fantastic. And of course, Coben, you did some beef and some sheep production, but then public speaking got into your brain. Has that been important for you?
It absolutely has. Going into high school, I was not able to speak in front of a crowd, maybe 5 people in a room. But through the Creed speaking contest in Illinois FFA, my freshman year, my advisor encouraged me to compete in it. And it's where you memorize and you recite 5 paragraphs of the FFA Creed in front of a panel of judges. And this contest alone has outstandingly improved my ability to publicly speak in front of members, adults, all people alike. And now, from being freshman year speaking in front of a small group of members, I'm able to speak in front of thousands of FFA members at various events.
Hundreds of thousands here on This Week in Agribusiness. Coben, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you the best of luck in your year of service to the Illinois FFA.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Well, our technology correspondent, Chad Colby, has been out in the car market recently. He's been testing some of the latest technology available in a specific brand of car. Before Christmas, Chad showed us what it was like to rent one of those vehicles. Now he shows us what it's like to drive.
If you missed our tech segment last week, we shared how easy it was to go demo a new Tesla. In fact, it's completely touchless. You don't talk to anyone. You can talk to Tesla if you have some questions, and certainly they're available for you, but you use your smartphone. It lets you into the car, and then you can go drive the vehicle. But on this tech segment, I wanted to talk about their supervised self-driving feature. You can see right here, I turned it on. It's one of the things in the demo that they want you to utilize. Try it out, see what it's like. And this latest version is unbelievable. Right here, I'm on Interstate 74 in Peoria, Illinois, actually on the river bridge, as you can see here, crossing the Illinois River. And what I want you to notice is how the system handles everything, and I would say like normal, like what you would do. You can set it on different settings. If you want to drive the speed limit or a few miles an hour over, you can do that. but it merges in and out of traffic. You can click on the cameras. You can see what the car sees, essentially. You can see here, I'm going to swipe it, and you can see from the forward camera, which is really cool, by the way. If you're pulling it into a garage or a parking spot, you can see where you're at. But where I was probably more intrigued, because a lot of cars can actually navigate the interstate system pretty well, it's when you get on surface streets and what happens when you get off the interstate. There's a lot of videos out there now recently of people that have taken Teslas across the country and never touched the steering wheel. Here I am as I'm off the interstate. We're actually going to a Chick-fil-A. It turns right on red with no problem. I kind of picked this Chick-fil-A not maybe because I was hungry for lunch, but more because I knew it was going to be a challenge. It always is driving into this one. It's next to the mall. And, you know how it is at a Chick-fil-A. There's buses and people and cars and people out of place. And this thing did this so smooth. You see here, it's going to navigate into the mall parking lot. And then shortly, I'm going to show you here as it turns into the actual restaurant parking lot and parks in a parking stall. Remember the first time you heard about auto steer on the farm? Is that something we're going to purchase and utilize? And now it's commonplace. In fact, on all tractors, it's pretty much a standard feature. And think about this. It wasn't that long ago that John Deere made big claims that they're going to have autonomy on farms. And guess what? They do. There's a lot of folks that saw tractors running in fields this year without anybody in the cab. And I guess the challenge I have for you as we roll into 2026 and kick off the year here with tech segments is seeing technology like this and working as well as it is, it's poised to change things forever. And I challenge you on your farm. Look at some of those things that could change things forever. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Chad, thanks for that update. It's great to see this technology at work on the roads. As someone who logs a lot of miles, I'm excited to see this come to maturity. Folks, when we come back, we'll have a conversation with our friends from Drago. As we look ahead to 2026, many growers are considering making adjustments on their operation. And joining me now to talk through one of those adjustments you could make is Dustin Bollock. He's the Vice President of Sales and Marketing with Drago Tech USA and raises corn and soybeans in northern Iowa. Dustin, thanks for joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
As we think big picture about the farm economy here as we head into 2026, Dustin, it's not where every farmer would like to see it. Folks are looking for ways to become more profitable with the tools that we have on hand. Why should they consider looking at a different corn head?
Well, it is interesting that a lot of farmers just look at a corn head as it just comes with the combine, right? And that is true, but at the same time, there's a lot more better companies out there, especially if you look at our product, that help save guys so much more yield. Because we have automatic deck plates, that automatically adjust for the farmer. You have knife rolls that are longer that help pull the corn down slower. And then for down corn, you look at the situation we ran in with this year as I farm myself on fungicide. I had run a lot of fungicide this year, and we spent a lot of dollars to try to get more corn in the machine. And the thing is, if you don't have a head to get it up into the machine that does a better job, it can cost you a lot of money, especially in down corn. You can have easily 10 to 15 more bushels loss. Compared to what we do with our big chains that overlap that help pull more corn up in the machine, compared to other companies. And then with our deck plates and our knife rolls, we pull corn down a lot smoother, softer, so there's less kernel loss, less butt shelling, and that's what gives us more advantage at the end of the day. And so to me, a corn head is actually a more important piece of equipment than what most people give it credit for.
I think that's true. It's the first place we encounter this corn in the harvest season. We want to make sure it's handled well, carried back, and put into the bins. Dustin, you've had customers. Your customer list has been growing across the country in recent years. How do those customers feel about Drago products once they've made that switch?
We have over a 95% satisfaction rate, and that's the big thing about Drago. You can ask. That's our best advertising is word of mouth. Farmers, I farm and my family farms, and, that's how we got started. And farmers just talk to each other. They realize the value that Drago brings. That's one of the big products, And And for us as farmers, it's very important that we sell a product that actually performs for the farmer, because we are farmers ourselves. So it's very important, and can't state enough how much lost savings you can have easily, 3 to 5 bushels an acre easily with the Drago corn head.
For folks who want to see a Drago corn head up close, will you be at any farm shows this spring?
Yes, we will. We'll be at the Iowa Farm Expo in Des Moines. We'll be at Louisville at the National Farm Machinery Show, and then in San Antonio at Commodity Classic.
It's going to be a busy spring. Dustin Bollock, Vice President of Sales and Marketing with Drago USA, thank you so much for talking to us this week.
Hey, thank you for having us.
And folks, you can learn more online at dragotech, dragotec.com. Well, folks, now that it's the new year, it won't be long, and we'll be out recording the show on the road. We'll be at the NCBA's convention in Nashville, we'll be at Commodity Classic, and we'll be at the National Farm Machinery Show in Louisville. We'd love to see you at any or all of those three. Thanks for joining us this week. Be sure to catch us next time, right here for This Week in Agribusiness. This Week in Agribusiness is recorded in the Strauss Studio. Family owned since 1948 and trusted by pros worldwide, Strauss makes gear that works as hard as you do. Tough, functional, and resilient. This isn't just workwear, it's gear engineered to perform. Gear up now at Strauss.com.
This Week in Agribusiness is produced by 22 Creative Group and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.